Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey!
This past SmackDown and Raw has been the WWE Draft, the results of which will be effective as of October 22nd, following the show that shall not be named. So for now, we get to do what we do best on this show, and that is sit around and theorize about what possible futures people have. We've seen tag teams get split up, we've seen people get shifted brands, we've seen titles get switched brands, and that's probably the easiest one to start off with because she's a pretty big one. Becky Lynch, the SmackDown Women's Champion as of right now, getting drafted over to Raw, while the Raw Women's Champion Charlotte getting drafted over to SmackDown.
Gee, that sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it?
Look, you get one of these moments every so often where I let you be smug. So feel free to be smug.
Yeah. And they immediately went into teasing a potential unification of the title on SmackDown. Less so on Raw, but definitely played it heavily on SmackDown. Between Becky and Charlotte. It'll probably just be something weak like they've swapped titles. Because, of course they would. That said, I still think they need to unify the two main titles and bring out a secondary title.
Mm-hmm.
But then, if they do that, they'll just be accused of copying AEW, which I'm actually legitimately saying because I actually watched the shows this week.
I was sitting here just like in anticipation. Is he going to say it? Is he going to say the words? And then he said the words. Yeah, the titles are so interesting, the WWE, just because there is so many of them right now, right? Like, the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, not including NXT or any of their teams, if we were to look at the teams that you have right now on Raw and SmackDown, you have one, and it is the champions. Every other team that you had got split up in this draft. And so if we're going to do anything with the women's titles, I got a suggestion first off.
My suggestion is retire them.
Yeah. Take them out of the picture.
Yeah. Maybe retire one half of them and turn the other half into the mid-card title.
Something's got to happen. Like, this division was already really weak, and now you've just literally ripped apart any chance that this division had of doing anything. Even if you keep around the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships, the main roster ones are pretty doomed at this point.
Yeah. Honestly, I think they need to start working on, like, actually forging more teams. I think they need to like, just start, like, pairing people up and seeing what kind of, like, union we can get. Like, for me, personally, I would pair Nia and Tamina up.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would make a great powerhouse team. But then again, they both have been tag team champions with somebody else in the last year, so who knows. But that would be a team I'd pair together. I would pair, let's see here. SmackDown doesn't have as many women, as I just noticed.
The division is not that deep.
Alright. I'll go with Aaliyah and Shotzi. Just because I don't know who else to pair together, because everybody else is like too high up on the chain to pair up. Unless you're going to do something like Shotzi and Toni Storm, or Shotzi and, well, I guess we'll mention probably one of the biggest surprises in the draft, Xia Li.
What? You're doing a segue? What is this? You mentioned AEW, you're doing a segue? Is this the same Josh? Have I called up a different person? But yeah, as you mentioned, Xia Li coming up from NXT without Tian Sha, without Mi Ying, without Boa, just Xia Li on her own.
As far as we know of right now.
It's true.
It also doesn't help that on NXT, Mi Ying lost her first match.
Yeah. I still don't understand it. You guys tried to explain it to me in the chat. I still don't get it. It just makes no
Yep.
sense to me why you would do that. You have this magical person, and you have them debut, and they lose, and then one of their stable mates is running away to the main roster, and what do you have here?
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that they've had a segment with Indy and her best woman from the wedding, whose name I do not know at the moment. I didn't pay close enough attention to learn it.
I only know her Australian name. I don't know her WWE name.
All right. So they were talking about the honeymoon for Indy with a bunch of innuendos, and they come along a room that's got smoke flowing out of it. They open the door, and there's just sitting in the middle of the chair with smoke around it is Mia Ying with Bo, and then they yell at Indy to get out and make a joke about that was freaky. I've seen freakier. And then they have a match out of nowhere, and everything's going well for Ying, and then she gets pushed into the ring post and put in the ring, and 1, 2, 3.
Yep. I still don't understand it. But I guess the knock-on effect for as far as people caring about only the main roster is that we do now have Xia Li, who was being built up, and can she continue that momentum now that she's up on SmackDown?
I think she can, especially since most of the people that will be watching on the main roster won't really know who she is that well. They may have seen her like in her one appearance in the Rumble, but they won't really know anything about her, so they'll be able to establish her a character and stuff while also making her look like a Billy B.A. Or should I say Bonnie B.A. since it's a female. And they'll slowly build her up.
Yeah.
So that's State of Tian Shao is not in good shape right now. That's for sure.
It's just really hard to predict what's going to happen with them. Like, we always thought, NXT was going to get a little bit robbed in this. It's not too crazy, the amount of people that they lost, but there is some cool storylines that are going to be shattered by this, like Xia Li obviously coming up. And then another one to look at as well is that, the entirety of Hit Row get called up as well, including the North American champion,
who is probably losing that title next week since he's defending it against Escobar.
It seems like he's destined to lose it, given him and his whole crew are coming up.
Yeah. But I personally, I would have him win that match, then lose it the next week, when it would be his official last night on NXT.
True.
Yeah. I'd have him foolishly do an open challenge or something, and have just some random person come out and beat him.
True.
But yeah, they'll probably just put the title on Escobar, and I'm fine with that. Escobar's a good talent. He's proved that with the Cruiserweight title when he held that title for as long as he did with the matches he had. He's a good heel.
Yeah, I think all of Hit Row should do well coming up to SmackDown as well. Like, they're a pretty good act together, but the important part is that they are an act together, right? Like, I don't think outside of maybe Swerve, anybody here is like a breakout star at the moment. They just haven't had long enough to fully figure out that dynamic and figure out those characters, other than, this is a crew that's tied together. We got our general group gimmick, and let's move on forward from here. So I look forward to seeing how they develop themselves on SmackDown.
Honestly, I think the biggest thing was when they announced Hit Row, they included the female.
It's true.
Because I think we all expected if they went, they'd leave the female behind for NXT's women's division.
And that's probably one of the biggest
bolsters
SmackDown needs as well.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, SmackDown women's division is pretty weak, so having BFAB there as well is going to help out.
Well, It's not that it's weak. It's just top heavy.
True.
It's got a lot of big names. Got Banks and Flair. You have Naomi, who is in her storyline. You have, to a lesser degree, you have Natalia. Then you have Tony, Satsuki. We've already talked about Xia Li. We have the newcomer Aaliyah. I mean, there's a pretty good division here.
True.
It's just a lot of the names here are to the upper part. And they took a lot of names, bigger names, and put them on Raw.
Mm-hmm. True. We'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening, because we also have a number of women's talents who also in that top-heavy side of things, but didn't get drafted due to injury or otherwise, right? Like, we've still got Bayley, we've still got Asuka sitting in the wings eventually for returns that could help out either of these rosters if these rosters turn out to be floundering. And then purely just because we're in the women's division, just before we hit the song as well, and I know it's not a high-profile one, and there's many more high profiles to talk about, but Liv Morgan heading over to Raw. Do you think she's going to get a bit more of a shake on Raw than she got on SmackDown with her momentum that she's building?
I could definitely see it. As I said, we got a lot of big names on Raw. We really have to see, but there's definitely room for her to grow and and potentially make it to the title area.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely room, because we have Becky, we have Bianca, we have Nia Jax, and who's currently injured but still got drafted. We've got the tag team champions and Nikki and
Ripley.
Ricky. Yeah, we've got Tamina. We've talked about. We've got Tegan Nox on this show. We've got Zelina Vega. We've got Carmella, who's currently in a feud with Liv Morgan, so they came together. We've got Dana Brooke, who basically lost an arm on Monday.
Lots of people are losing arms at the moment.
Yeah, we've got Bliss, who's currently off in a void. We don't really know what's going on with her. We've got Mia Yim. We've got Doudrop, who seems to be wanting to do a feud with Shayna Baszler, who got drafted to SmackDown. So yeah, we've got a really good division here on Raw.
Yeah.
I think with this draw, we said 2 years ago in the last draft, SmackDown easily won that draft. I'd say in this case, Raw won this draft.
I would deem it a lot closer, but yeah. Raw by a hair.
Yeah, I would say they did a lot of course correcting, because SmackDown's so strong right now, they could afford to lose a bunch of stars and still build up a new ones, because that's what SmackDown's always done. It's always built up new stars. But I think maybe after we get back from the break, I think I want to talk about one of my maybe biggest draft picks.
Alrighty, that sounds like, again, you're doing segues, this time into the song. I don't know what's gotten into you, but as you requested, let's go into our entrance theme. This week it is going to be the theme of Hit Row, coming up from NXT to SmackDown, and their theme is playing for you right about now.
Hit row, hit row. Yeah. And if you didn't know, this ain't for play. We crash down in your foundation and yeah.
And you're back with Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh, and I'm going to hand the floor on over to you.
Now, do you remember the Evolve show a couple years ago?
Of course. You wouldn't stop talking about it.
It was such a good show. And I sat there and said, I think this kid has a bright, bright future. I really enjoyed the work he did on that show. I've enjoyed the stuff he's done in NXT, minus whatever time he went to Raw.
Minus that little weird period.
That. We don't talk about that part. But we enjoyed his stuff with The Way. So I'm very excited for Austin Theory on Raw.
Again.
But I'm excited because this time it looks like they're actually going with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they brought out... I think they sent him back down to work on his character work. That was an issue the first time.
Yeah.
But his stuff with the way, I think, really unlocked a lot of his potential. And I think he'd already made a statement with the stuff that he did with Jeff Hardy on Raw.
I was going to say, it's a pretty massive statement to come on out on your re-debut on Raw, take out Jeff Hardy, and push your character afterwards, of course, with the selfie stuff as well.
Yeah. So I'm excited because I really like this kid. I think he's amazing in the ring, and I think if he can put it all together with the mic work, I think he could potentially, 4 or 5 years down the road, main event WrestleMania.
That's high praise.
So yeah, I'm very, very excited for that draft pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now you're making me want to skim around and see if there's one that excites me that much. But I can't think of one quickly enough. So I will just default back to talking about some more NXT call-ups. We mentioned Hit Row already. We talked about Xia Li already. You just talked about Austin Theory. We also got to mention that Ridge Holland is going to be making his way up to SmackDown. Currently embroiled in arguably one of the main event feuds on NXT with Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly.
Yeah, that's definitely something that'll have to come to an end here shortly. I don't really know what the plan is, but he's got the look that WWE loves. I'm pretty sure that the next couple months, the next 4 or 5 months, is going to be nothing but him squashing local competitors.
He definitely has that build, doesn't he? He has the I'm going to be squashing local competitors.
Yeah, which is fine. But honestly, I think the biggest surprise of the draft for most people was Gable Stevenson.
It's true.
Stevenson's. Sorry. There's no N. So we know where this kid is going. And he's on and a lot of people saying he needs to go to SmackDown. I kind of disagree. He's on the Bright brand, I think. Why? Because AJ Styles is there.
Okay.
Because Otis is there. Because Chad Gable is there. Because Bobby Lashley is there. These are all guys that are either amazing in the ring or have a similar background to Gable. They can teach him. And as he's growing in his ability, you have Sheldon.
Sure.
Who we're positive will be willing to teach him. Who's also a former All-American. He didn't win a gold medal like Gable did, but Sheldon's up there. So yeah, I think all the pieces on this roster here are there to help build Gable Stevenson.
It's
you even have the Street Profits who were because you had Dawkins and Ford. Dawkins more because he also has a similar background.
It's probably the most interesting prospect, just because we can't even begin to predict what we're going to see out of Gable, right? The guy's just stepping foot in now, and he's going to be developing, and by the looks of it, he's going in the deep end, and he's going to have to learn how to swim pretty quickly, which has worked in the past, and it'll be interesting to see if he can adapt to it and pull it off like he's going to need to.
Well, what they always say is if you're from the amateur ranks, and you're really good at it, the in-ring work is never going to be an issue. That's always been proven over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have people like Ronda Rousey, Bobby Lashley. So the in-ring ring is not going to be an issue, I don't believe.
Yeah.
It's the character work. It's always, at least with WWE, it's always about the character work. Can you connect with the crowd? Can you get over?
And that's something that you're not going to know, right, until you put him in front of the crowd, and you put him there, and you see how he does. And usually you get to sort of try that out on NXT and see how it goes, but the guy's going to have trial by fire doing that out on the main roster.
Yeah, you're right. But then most people don't have the pedigree that Gable does when they're coming into the company.
That's true.
And the fact is that most people that go to NXT have been working a certain style in the indies, and they have to be taught very specifically the WWE style. But this is a blank slate. They're teaching him as they go.
Yeah.
So he's going to be learning the WWE style on right from the get-go. He doesn't have to replace a style.
That's true. And as I said, like at the start, right, this is just going to be so interesting to see how he develops. He is definitely the most interesting choice here. He might not be the most exciting. Like, you know, we have seen some big names switch brands. Like we've seen Drew McIntyre come over to SmackDown. We've seen Edge go over to Raw. Those are sort of your big main event exciting names, but he's got pure potential just written across him. If this was, you know, a legitimate draft, you'd be sitting there going, that was a great pick. It's a big risky pick, but it's a great pick.
Yeah, it could be a reach. It could end up being a reach. Or it could be a massive home run if he turns out to be the next coming of Kurt Angle. That's why they put him on Raw, is to bet on him developing into something of a Kurt type.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not exactly Kurt, because Kurt was special. There's no denying that.
Once in a lifetime.
But if Gable can become special in his own way, WWE will have hit a massive home run, and they will have a legit athlete that they could potentially put as a WWE champion someday. I have heard rumors they want to do at WrestleMania next year, Gable versus Brock.
It's pretty high price.
That would be, that would be a massive match, especially if they could get Brock to put him over.
Mm.
But we have 6 months between now and then to teach him the ring stuff and develop his character, and see if he's in a position at that point to take on such a match.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he's ready for it.
Yeah. Before we run out of time, I got a couple of interesting ones here that sort of made me pull a little bit of a face when I saw these draft picks that I just want to bring up. The first of which is that Jinder Mahal got drafted over to SmackDown, but with him, he is only taking Shanky. Veer will be remaining on Raw. Do we think they're going to actually try anything with Veer now that he is left behind, or he will just fade off into existence?
I think he'll be chasing the 24/7 champion, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we saw some very athletic moves from the current champion on Raw as he was escaping the many people that wanted to take his title from him.
Reggie's doing amazing things with that title.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I've got big question marks about is that T-Bar will be remaining on Raw while Mace will be heading over to SmackDown on his own. You know, the only remnants left of this retribution now.
Yeah, I think it's time we got our boy back with his proper name.
We're gonna get Dominic?
I think we're going to get Dominic Djokovic. Yes.
That is my hope. I feel like, you know, we've finally ripped apart the last possible scraps together of Retribution, and as you say, it is time to take the handcuffs off, let the man run free as Dominic again, and let him show what he can do. We saw great things from him on NXT, so there's no reason, now that he's up here, that he can't be showing them off again. You know, if all else fails, just put him in a feud with Keith Bearcat Lee. They're both on Raw now, and they'll tear the house down like they did last time.
Yeah, but I think with the new, meaner character of Bearcat, that happens if they face off. I think Keith Lee wins in like 3 minutes.
Probably doesn't go all that long.
Yeah. But I am excited. I think there are lots of possibilities throughout both these rosters. I think, as you said, it is a bit more balanced. But yeah, I think Raw is a stronger one. But we also know that SmackDown is better at developing stars. So some of the people that are on the lower end here may end up becoming like upper mid-carders by the time we get to the next draft.
Sure.
Or the decision to completely scrap it all together. Whichever comes first. But yeah, I think we're in good positions right now with our rosters. We are upset that we lost the New Day again. That happened. Yeah, we just can't have nice things.
Nope. Can't have them together as a trio, unfortunately.
But now we got a King of the Ring and Queen's Crown tournaments coming up. Could Xavier Woods finally get what he wants?
We'll have to see on the next episode of Wrestling Roundup, because we are all out of time for this week. It's been great talking to you.
Baby.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/WrestlingRNDup, or our Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRNDup, or our YouTube page, youtube.com/WrestlingRNDup. And we will see you next week.
From the look on their face, it's like the prize right in front of my eyes. Taking the sky's the limit, got no time.